Hi, good evening. Good evening, one and all. I'm Ireland David, and welcome to this week's edition of the Minority Report. Thank you for being with us this evening. And as per usual, we have quite an interesting show lined up for you today. A lot coming off of last week's show, taking place in Tobago in a number of areas. But as we always deliver and promise you, the general public, we bring to you the facts of the matter, as they like to say, the facts of the matter. We are in a new month, so welcome to July. Today is the 1st of July, and we are seeing the year progressing very, very quickly. I want to say really and truly thanks for the overwhelming support that we've been receiving consistently right here on the Minority Report, as is evidenced by our weekly live viewership, and it consistently is increasing. And so I want to say thank you to all those of you who have put time aside on a Tuesday night from 8 to 9:30 to really lock in and support us right here on the show. If you are watching or viewing the show and you want to share the different platforms with someone else who may be interested and may not be on one or two of the platforms, you can view the show on the Tobago Updates website. You can view the show on the Tobago Updates YouTube channel. You can look at us and actually have the opportunity to converse and to comment if you just log into the Tobago Updates Facebook page. If you are a Flow subscriber, however, you can tune your channel to channel 121 HUB TV, that's channel 121 Hub TV, or channel 130 AVS. If you are subscribed to AMPLIA, on the other hand, you simply turn your channel to channel 102 on the AMPLIA network, and you can view us live in studio and all of the programming coming out of Tobago Updates. If you want to send us a WhatsApp message, probably with a comment, some information you want to share, a photograph, a video, something maybe affecting you as an individual or as a community, you can do so on 284-6597. That is 284-6597. Feel free to share whatever information. We treat with things with a measure of confidentiality. And on that note, I want to say thank you for many of you who continue to share information with us, either by way of digital or coming into the office, dropping out a document, dropping a letter, an envelope, unmarked as the case may be, always providing us with what we like to call inside information. So we want to say thank you. Keep up the good work. You are true patriots of Tobago, and you are joining in the fight here to raise your voices to hold this administration accountable. Right now, I want to go straight into our introduction of the team here tonight, looking extremely sharp in studio. Please join me in welcoming both the Minority Leader, Assemblyman Kelvin Morris, and the Minority Councillor, Mrs. Petal Daniel Benoit, on set with us today. Welcome, folks. How are you all? You all look sharp this evening. It's something special today?
Minority Councillor. She had a special date with the screening committee of the People's National Movement.
Oh, yes. How are you guys?
Right, good.
Yeah,
to God be the glory. To God be the glory. Great things He has done.
Yeah, we can't do anything without
Yes.
Him. And, it's really a privilege to be on the Minority Reports again today. Want to welcome all our viewers, wherever you are locked on. Remember to share the live, share the live, share the live. Thank you for your continued support. And yes, we had a date,
Special.
a previous engagement prior to being on the Minority Report with the screening committee of the PLM this afternoon. So both the Minority Leader and I screened for the electoral district of Darrell Spring Wim and the Scarborough Mongrace.
Wow. How was it for you, seeing that you still have the mic?
So it was my first time facing a screening committee. The experience was awesome. I must admit, a little bit anxious at first. But a lot of questions were posed in terms of capacity and stuff. And, it was a rigorous exercise, and I'm really grateful to have participated. I want to thank the party groups within the district for the unanimous support, because without them, I would not have been able to move forward. So I really want to thank them for the support, and for all the persons who came out today to support us, at the screening, those who could not be there in person, but, prayed and sent blessings and best wishes. I really want to express my sincere gratitude.
All right, nice. So, so many persons are wondering, okay, you're saying that this is the first time before the screening committee, but it seems as if you are a veteran because they've been seeing you in the house for all this time. How, if you have to explain to someone what's the difference, what would you say?
Well, the difference being the minority councillor is that the minority leader would have reached out to me and, expressed asking if I would serve alongside him as the councillor, since as the minority leader, he's appointed one councillor, and I did say yes to that. I raised my hand. So with that, that's an appointed position in the house. Of course, that was also a new experience for me, and I think it was for both of us, where we had to learn and grow, quite quickly. So there was a steep learning curve there. But with this position now, the party would have put out its notice for persons who are interested to so serve at that level in terms of representation. And having served as a minority councillor, and thank you, minority leader, for that opportunity, it gave me the courage, it gave me the experience. Yes, I have been in the politics for some time, but serving more in the backline, the backline, so to speak.
Yeah.
So now being at the forefront, offering services, engaging with members of the community, I think now is the time to come forward.
Minority leader.
Let me say pleasant good night to one and all. It's always a pleasure to be on this program speaking to the people of Tobago, Trinidad and Tobago, and the diaspora. And, persons would log on faithfully every Tuesday to listen to us. So we are really grateful for your support. I was just I recognize that while you're trying to screen Councillor Benmo, there are persons on the program screening you. I see a question coming, so I'll ask and I'll ask you, Mr. David, what seat are you going up on? Now the moderator has lost. He's lost for words.
I am
Alfred, I did represent on your behalf.
And the response for the people.
I will allow the party to make that announcement.
But yes, today I also was screened unopposed for the electoral district of Darrell Spring Wim. And, I firstly just want to thank Almighty God. People think, and it may appear as if, representation, especially being the lone representative, and then fulfilling the role of minority leader is an easy one. But I can tell you it is not, and it's only by God's grace that, I remain standing and remain representing. And of course, God has blessed me with, the perfect support counselor that you could ever ask for. I don't think we could have gotten a better choice than in Petal Daniel Benoit. Where I'm weak, she's strong, and she has brought a real sense of even the spiritual solidarity that we have and togetherness, and we really appreciate you and all you have done. I see it as this team, maybe few in numbers, but I believe that for the last 3.5 years, I think we have done really good work. And, you know, well, we have Mr. David here as well. So today is a day of gratitude
Yes.
and appreciation. We don't know what would happen with the screening process, but of course, we leave that up to the Almighty. And we continue to now turn our attention again to ensuring that we continue to represent, advocate, and be that voice of reason, especially for the voiceless. And, you know, I made a point in beginning my presentation of the budget. And, you know, sometimes it's important that you remind people and tell your own story, because if you allow others to tell your story, then, you know, you get a lot of misrepresentation. And I thought it was important that I remind persons and make them understand that this young man that stands before them, not a young man that had life easy. Nothing came to me easy. I know what it feels like to have to stretch one meal to make it 3. I know what it feels like to share, you know, a small space with a big family. I know what struggle feels like. I know what hard work means, because I've seen my parents work hard to provide for their kids. And therefore, this is why, you know, I take this job, this responsibility of minority leader extremely seriously, ensuring that the very scarce resources that are given to the people of Tobago is used to the best of our ability, is used in the best interest, and is used prudently, and is not wasted, because I know the amount of people who depend on that at the very low levels. I know the amount of people that depend on knowing that if I go for a grant, I can get a grant. I know the amount of school children that depends on that book grant, that assistance to purchase uniform. I know how many people depend on the healthcare system to know that I cannot afford to go to a private doctor. So the healthcare system must be in a way that provides quality healthcare. And this is why I advocate for these issues so passionately, is because I know what it feels like to not have, and to have to depend on the state to provide. Right? And therefore it is important, you know, that people understand when we bring these issues to the fore, it's not simply about the politics. Politics would always exist. But I can speak for Petal and I, and for this team, when we bring the issues before the public, is to really ensure that it's treated with, and we don't expect that you would have people who would pretend, you know, like what you're saying is not something we're considering.
Yeah, and more than that too, I think what we emphasize is that the administration came into office given certain promises and on a premise that they will do things differently. And when you highlight the issues, there's an expectation that the response will be different. The response should not be, why you're raising these issues? You all did it before, so, you know, it shouldn't be a problem now. But you advocated, you promised, you told the people that you will do things differently. And even if, you know, before the issues were raised, you didn't recognize, and it is now brought to your attention, it should be dealt with in a different way. It should be dealt with seriously. It should be looked into to see what are the merits of the complaint and address them accordingly. And the response of, you do it too, you're there for 21 years, so you should shut up and not say anything and don't complain, is unacceptable.
And we were able to deal with that 21 years versus 3.5, because you see, again, because the PNM traditionally is not a boastful party, we have gone about the business of doing what we have to do and hoping that people will recognize what we did. And therefore, you know, it's because we don't put it in the face of the public every day, it is quite easy for others to come and rewrite history.
Yeah,
and
and
when
forget,
we
and people to forget
so what we
where-
would have done, and we would take our time going forward and break down those issues, because we were able to show in the 3.5 years what they said they would do. We actually, it is their words saying this is our plans for Tobago. We will do X, Y, Z. And most of the plans came after the reprioritization. So
Yeah.
it is them now knowing exactly what
What
their
they
budget,
have.
what their allocation is, and what they can do out of that allocation. And lo and behold, the majority of items, projects, initiatives that they said they would undertake in the various divisions and sectors, the reality is almost 70 to 75% of those were not done. They
Those don't
failed
materialize.
to do it. And we were able to show in the same breath, the PNM during their tenure, the amount of schools that were built, the amount of health centers that were built, the amount of community centers that were built, the amount of playing fields that were lit and upgraded. We were
The
able
land
to
bank.
show the amount of the investment in the land bank, the land holdings that they could now advance for lotification development
Distribution
and
now.
housing development.
The hospital.
The hospitals, the investment in all those different grants and programs. Most of those programs that they're running are programs that were created by the PNM, from REACH to BDU to we were able to show initiatives such as TTAL and EID Cut and Cove, and those investments, all those investments are investments made by a people's national movement under the same circumstances or even worse.
Worse.
Because the
In
Less-
terms of resources, we did more with less.
ML, even the general standard of living.
Yes.
Correct.
Of people.
Because we moved a number of Tobagonians from
Households.
a position of very low income to a position of medium or to middle income. I
Credibility
remember a
within
lot
financial
and you
institutions.
know, sometimes of it is just anecdotal. You drive through a village. If you drove through that village 20 years ago,
Yes.
Yes.
most of those homes were 2-bedroom boarded, some of them with a number of outhouses and all that.
Yes.
You drive through that same
No.
village now
You see the
after the
standard of
PNM,
living,
and you would
yeah.
recognize those board
No
has been
concrete.
replaced with concrete. They have
And expanded,
extended,
yes.
expanded
Yes, the number of
downstairs,
vehicles,
upstairs,
yes.
gone wide.
2,
and
3 cars.
They had no cars before. Now we have 3 cars, and that is how you really know if your policies are
impacting people.
Impacting
people.
lives.
Because it's P and P must go together.
Yeah.
Policies, because one thing to have policies and plans, but if it's not impacting the people as
Correct.
we are seeing
In a
now,
positive
in a
manner.
positive manner, because $10 billion have been spent in Tobago over the last 4 years. But the reality is, when you talk to the man on the ground, anybody, you could go by the businessman, you could go by the fisherman, the
Farmer.
barber, the farmer, the taxi driver,
Yes,
and everyone will tell you. So if you really want to do a comparison, just talk to the people, and they would tell you their life and their livelihood, the things that were making money for them, they were making much more money under the PNM than they are making now.
Correct.
And that is the reality.
That's a
So
fact.
that is a fact. You know, so we were able to bring out those points in the budget, and we also in that budget presentation acknowledged that the PNM wasn't perfect. So because the PNM is made up of imperfect people as well.
Yeah.
So it's not a perfect party, and it doesn't have perfect people. So of course along the way there would have been missteps, and we wholly apologized to anyone or any institution or any person that felt in some way affected or angry by any policy or initiative or action of the PNM. And because we are doing the introspection as a party, and they say the first step to being better and to recovering from any situation is acknowledging and accepting that
Where you went wrong.
where you went wrong. And therefore we are humbly doing that. It's not easy to look within. And we have accepted that we weren't perfect, but we are making the adjustments, we are making the necessary changes to ensure that going forward we can offer P&M that is stronger, that is better, and is more able and capable to cater even more to the people of Tobago.
Minority leaders, we talk about achievements because there are a number of things that I think touched our lives in a way in terms of policy. And I recall while I was going to secondary school, there were only 3 secondary schools on the island.
Yeah.
Yeah. You had the Roxborough, you had Bishops, and you had Scarborough Secondary from first form to third form, and then Signal Hill from third form, from fourth form to sixth form. And through the policy and the intervention of the People's National Movement, you had another school in Far East, which is Speyside. You had Goodwood, Lower Down, and you had on the north side Mason Hall. And that would have caused a number of persons to be educated and enter into secondary school as a result of that policy. Even as it relates to tertiary education, the government would have instituted GATE because there were a lot of families who could not afford to send their children to tertiary education, and that was a game changer for a lot of persons. And even as a Tobago resident, the THA would have gone further and said, we will help in terms of the additional cost, be it for transportation, traveling to and from, or be it accommodation. And that support, again, would have gone a long way assisting persons who would not have normally afforded to send their children to secondary school. And those policies would have positively impacted lives of people.
And then even the investment to employ young people, because I know there was a time when young person, especially underskilled young person, would have had to either look to go and work in the grocery. That was the options available, because you didn't really have a robust private sector. So it was those type of jobs. And then the policies of the P&M ensured that we opened up the various divisions, the daily paid, and so you started to see more positions coming on, and more people employed. So from agri, infrastructure, right across the board, it was an employment boom in Tobago. And then you had CPEP, you had the women's program. And in fact, if you look at the history of CPEP, CPEP was really created in Tobago. And the government, seeing the impact it was having in Tobago, expanded it, and of course it became CPEP. I think it was Community Empowerment Program that was just CEP in Tobago. And then we had PAM, we had the Women's Program, etc., etc. And the P&M continued to build out and build out and build out. And you know, I want to say this as well. Say what you want about Dr. Rowley. We as Tobagonians have to be so grateful for having Dr. Rowley as Prime Minister at the time he was Prime Minister. Because I don't know, even when we had more, no government saw it fit to make that investment in Tobago as he did. Whether you talk about upgrading our water supply challenges, whether it's the desilting of the Hills Road Dam, whether it's ensuring that the people of Far East got a hospital, whether it's ensuring that we have we got into the habit of just simply leasing. There was never the thought that we can own for the people of Tobago too. Didn't even think about what he didn't say, well, we'll lease one and we'll purchase one. We got 2 brand new fast ferries and we're in the process, already started for the cargo. And then on top of that, the A&R Robinson Airport. As I said, that, and it bar none, that is the most expensive infrastructural investment ever to be done in the history of Tobago. And it was done in a time when the country was under significant economic challenges. And
correct.
I don't think any other prime minister, given all those situations, would have had the belly and even the interest and the courage and the passion and the vision to make that investment. And therefore, we have to be so grateful for the contribution of Dr. Rowley and what he as Prime Minister did for Tobago. And history would say, ultimately, history would be Dr. Rowley's greatest reprieve.
And Minority Leader, even in that vein, in addition to the way that he stood to make the contributions, the very people who stood to scrutinize him and chastise him, who now are in government, they were the ones who were saying that Tobago don't deserve what it is he was. They're getting too much.
You had Dr. Monilal, and I recognize Hans Devines reminded him and reminded the current MP for Tobago West of what the people he's sitting with was saying about Tobago.
Correct.
Because they are of the view that Tobago as an island is getting too much. When they have various municipalities and boroughs that they believe are larger in population than Tobago, that is not getting as much as Tobago. And therefore, they are watching us with a cokey eye. And you've seen it you actually saw it in the way what they allocated for Tobago in the midterm review.
And I wanted us to deal with that a bit.
Right? Because here it is. This is the highest. This is something we didn't touch on, but it is one of the highest supplementary allocation since this TPP. Well, we're not really TPP administration because nobody voted for the TPP. But this administration came into power, right? Under PDP, transformed to independence, then to TPP. And yet, this is the lowest. So this was the highest national midterm supplementary allocation. Yet Tobago was given its
lowest ever.
I want Tobagonians to understand
when compared
to what was given before. So the previous administration claimed that the PNM administrations were wicked and don't like Tobago. This is what they claim. They claim, they call it fiscal wickedness when they were getting more out of less, right? So out of a smaller supplementary allocation, the PNM administrations were giving them less, giving them more. So in 2022, they got 100 million out of, don't want to misquote, but then they got 60 million and then 50 million. So in 2022, 100, 2023, 60, and 2024, 50 million. So in total, they got 210 million in additional allocation during the midterm. Under their friends, the ones they claim that are so loving and understanding and caring and supportive and collaborative.
All the adjectives now.
So what you're seeing there in red people are the allocations given by the People's National Movement. And you see the 100 million standing tall amongst the 60 and the 50. PNM racked up some great towers. But you would see that very small building down to the bottom.
The yellow one.
The yellow one. The yellow
I love
building.
the color scheme.
That yellow building is what we got. And what that represented out of the national allocation, because the chief secretary liked to put it in terms of a dollar, because he's talking 100%. So 100% of $3.143 billion is a dollar. Think about it that way. And out of that dollar, we got 1 cent out of that dollar. The $32 million. I want to I want you to understand what we're saying. That $32 million compared to the $3.173 billion in dollars and cents really represents 1 cent.
Is it 1 cent or less than a cent? Is that
Well, one now, point where we round it off to
we
one
round it
because
off.
we really can't have nothing. So
We round it off. It didn't make it, but
what we just call a long time is a penny.
like 2 cents.
2 cents is a
Penny
penny.
is 2 cents, yeah.
Also, we instead of
So we
reach a
didn't
penny.
make a penny.
So we get 1 cent of every dollar this administration going to spend additionally. And imagine your chief secretary used to cost
Yes.
for 4 cents or 5 cents because he got like 4.3
Yeah.
and he was costing to no end for 4.
Fiscal wickedness, man.
And he said that was fiscal wickedness. Yet his friends gave him 1 cent and all we got was silence.
Yeah.
With the same energy.
And the 100,000, the 100 million, sorry, in terms of the debts.
Yeah.
One,
Right.
the Minister of Finance indicated that they are in the process of accelerating the negotiations. So more than likely, there is no signing of any loan agreement just yet.
Oh, that's the 102 million
That's the
CAF loan. Okay.
CAF loan. So I am not sure. I'm uncertain whether or not that transaction will be completed within this financial year to get any sort of release within the financial year. So the $102 million, we basically back at 32. Because again, the 102 is a loan, which has to be repaid by.
And it just shows how devious the UNC
or the Trinidad and Tobago government.
It shows how devious the UNC and how deceptive they are. Because initially, when they went through the committee stage of this supplementary,
no loan.
All they mentioned, and all they could have mentioned because they were dealing with the actual allocations for the supplementary, was this $30 million transfer. Lo and behold, because his friends in Tobago called and said, "They're making me looking bad." People in Tobago saying, "But wait, we ain't winning. Friends, Tobago not winning. Look, we get less than what the PNM was giving." And remember, I used to cost the PNM. So he now call up the minister, and the minister, recognizing that he's trying to save face for them, now lumps this loan that they have not received, don't know when they will receive it.
Have not completed the negotiation, have not signed on any dotted lines.
And lump it together with the 32 million and told the media and reported to the parliament that the Tobago House of Assembly will be getting an additional $134 million. The media themselves got so confused that one media house reported the $134 million as a supplementary in addition to the loan. And they were correct in their thinking that, of course, the loan cannot be added to the allocation. So therefore, they thought that it was $134 million in supplementary, and then the loan that is 102. And that is part of the deception of the UNC. But that loan, as Minority Councillor explained, is separate and apart and has to be counted because it has to be also catered for as to who is going to repay, how it's going to be repaid, and where that allocation, because something has to give down the road.
Exactly.
And that is what the question is. Even if the government is going to carry this loan on behalf of the THA, how would that affect future allocations for Tobago? And will that loan be considered in terms of
and even be it direct allocations to the Tobago House of Assembly as well as indirect allocations in terms of spending by ministries in Tobago.
Because this is something that, and I want to put Tobagonians on notice, that, and we are witnessing a very, as I said, deceptive and very cunning kind of administration. And therefore, as we look forward to the actual budget coming up, something Tobagonians have to look forward to is to see if the government maintains its transfers to Tobago through the ministries at the level that the former administration was administering, because you would have had at least an average of $690 million dollars in government transfers dealing with Section 6 areas, etc. And therefore, we must now look to see if they maintain that and see what Tobago actually gets as its budget, because I suspect that what they may very well do is suppress the government side, this government spending, and add some of that to the THA and say, look, we give all them more. But in a real sense, I liked the fact that the minister gave a total sum of what was given in this year's budget, which included the contribution from the government in addition to the THA's allocation. So we'll be able to do that comparison again going forward, come October.
And even in the budget, the national budget statements, the minister have been consistent in terms of identifying the direct allocation to the Tobago House of Assembly, disaggregated recurrent development programs, CPEP and URP, and also stating the government spend by ministries in Tobago. And I know when this administration came into office, one of the things that they were saying that they could not, really track what was the government spending in Tobago, but there were direct line items that had the allocation and the expenditure. So you could track. There's a line item for the desilting of the Silbro Dam. There are various line items that are specific to spending in Tobago, that if you think that the spending is not really, you could go to those line items and verify.
Correct.
Very, very good. Now, last week and I'm glad we're going this way with the discussion. Last week, we had the sitting of the Assembly, again with the budget debate. And Minority Leader, you had a very interesting explanation where you presented with respect to a very hot topic that we are experiencing now in Tobago, and we still see another hot topic come on top of that hot topic that we will prosecute as well. I want the director just to cue up that particular clip. While he's doing that, you wanted to say something?
No, well, I was just saying in terms of using health type language, the TRH is a hotbed for hot topics.
Very correct. Mr. Director, are we ready with that clip?
Second example that is even worse, and I've described it as the greatest procurement scandal in the history of this very 45-year-old institution called the Tobago House of Assembly. And this has to do with the procurement of some ambulances, Madam Presiding Officer. And today, for the people of Tobago, I've received from a whistleblower a dossier of documents that lays bare the case, Madam Presiding Officer, that if ever I had any doubt that there was unlawful, illegal practices involved in this procurement, these documents prove satisfy my doubts. Madam Presiding Officer, I want to share with the people of Tobago what happened. Walk them through very quickly. So, the Tobago Regional Health Authority, over time, would have recognized that the ambulance fleet was depleting and embarked on a process to acquire new ambulances. That process went ahead in 2022, and based on their evaluation, they received, the evaluation committee determined that there was no satisfactory bids, and that procurement process was closed. Curiously, the Tobago Regional Health Authority then restarted another process, and they coined it, their favorite word, emergency procurement, because they love emergencies. But the law is clear as to what is an emergency. The law says it's something that you cannot predict. You must not know. You must not have prior, it must be force majeure, like a natural disaster. Something that cannot be planned for or predetermined. That is an emergency. Urgency, Madam Presiding Officer, is not an emergency according to the law. However, they went ahead and coined this an emergency procurement. And quite interestingly, this procurement process took on where quotations received from one bidder in January, then a next bidder in February, and then one more bidder comes along at the very end. So the evaluation committee continued to change, but you're treating with the same process. So different people evaluating the same thing. Yet, you have an evaluation sheet that comes to us with names, but absolutely no signature. No signature to validate that what is on this sheet is actually what took place.
Minority Leader, I'm on my feet. Please have a seat. I didn't see a notice from you to read from other documents in the House. You didn't seek permission to...
I'm not reading, I'm showing it to the public.
And I am telling you, if you have any intent of reading from documents that you did not seek my leave for, you can't. Thanks.
I am not reading, I am simply reporting to the people of Tobago what I know as fact. Madam, and I take full responsibility for the statements I make here today. So if they have any issues, they can send me to the privileges.
Member, continue.
Thank you. Madam Presiding Officer, so, as a matter of fact, no signature on the evaluation report, but quite interestingly, the successful bidder was the bidder that submitted their bid the last. That bidder had the most expensive quote. That bidder was also the least experienced, absolutely actually had zero experience in supplying ambulances. And quite interestingly, one of the bidders that was bypassed was the bidder who actually supplied the previous Ford ambulances and was also supplying again another Ford ambulance at $1 million TT. We had a bid coming in from Amalgamated, and they had a letter of support from North Central Regional Health Authority saying that we can confidently recommend this provider because we are utilizing their service and we have absolutely no issue. So you have a letter of support, and guess what? For those two ambulances, it was costing $1.4 million, an average of $700,000 per ambulance. Madam Presiding Officer, would you believe that having all that information before them, the TRHA, who continues, and this administration who continues to tell us they don't have no money, decided to take the most expensive option out of the two, the least experienced. And here it gets even more interesting. You know what the brand, the make and model that is quoted. Madam Presiding Officer, would you believe that is not what came to the shores of Trinidad and Tobago? On the quotation of this provider that was successful, they said they were supplying Isuzu brand. So of course the evaluators would have gotten excited because we all know about Isuzu in this part of the country. But like if you were shopping on Shein or Temu, what you ordered was not what was delivered and what we received. We were forced, no pun intended, the TRHA received forced ambulance vehicles. That was no way on the quotation. And what is even interesting as well, so okay, the quotation was for 2, so everybody quoted for 2. Curiously, the award of the contract was for 4 ambulances, but you quoted for 2. And we all know how economies of scales go. If I know I'm quoting for 12 ambulances, I may take down the price a little bit because economies of scale, I may be able to produce it at a cheaper price. But what they requested was 2. They awarded for 4. And at no point in time thereafter, there was any evidence of a variation to the process. But you know what happened, Madam Presiding Officer? They went ahead and purchased 12. And in purchasing 12, they didn't even receive 1. But they paid for 4 up front. Then they went again and paid for another 4. That time 2 years passed and they still didn't get 1. Madam Presiding Officer, you understand what I'm saying here?
That is accountability.
This is what this secretary over here boasted about: accountability, transparency, and good governance. If that is good governance, I don't want to see bad.
So, folks, Minority Leader, I felt like we were in a storytelling arena. It was just so fluid. The information is mind-boggling, to say the least.
Yes.
How did we get to this place? How?
If this doesn't concern every right-thinking Tobagonian and really bring to consciousness Tobagonians to mind their business, I don't think there ever would be anything else. I've dubbed it, and I believe in my time, don't know before people may have seen others, but in my time, this is but the greatest procurement scandal in the history of the Tobago House of Assembly.
Yeah.
When you look, as I think Minority Councillor was saying off camera there, it was like a comedy of,
Yes.
and you have to ask yourself, how could a regional health authority that dealt with the procurement of ambulances so well in the past become so poor at procuring ambulance?
What changed?
What changed?
The
It's
administration.
the same stuff.
Because
Yeah, but
it's
the
the same.
administration would have changed. The policy drivers would have changed. So you'd have a new board, you have a new secretary.
And this is
So that
happening.
changed.
This is happening under a very rigid procurement act.
Correct. Correct.
So it appears that they had absolute, because when you look at this, there's so many red flags immediately, just taking a cursory layman view of this. And there's so many things wrong
The process.
with the process. And then even at the end result of it, there were so many opportunities for the TRHA to correct this error, so to speak. And for some reason, they just chose to ignore all the red flags and continue to force this force ambulance on the population. It's like they're, it's bad medicine, and all you're trying not to swallow, they are forcing it down and telling you have to take it. And why? Because
Correct.
if you have a situation as is being alleged here, where on document, the very quotation from the bidder is for Isuzu branded ambulances with a checklist that was perfect to what the TRHA was looking for. I don't know since when. You who have never supplied an ambulance in your life to any entity, don't even have one ambulance in your own stock pile, could perfectly say to the TRHA, everything that you are asking for,
I can provide.
I can provide,
provide.
and know exactly what you wanted. Isn't that curious? That they knew everything to the T that the TRHA wanted. While you had experienced suppliers of ambulance services being more generalistic in their proposal, because you just don't know exactly what the client would want, but you would give them options. This provider was able to provide a checklist of just as how the TRHA had their checklist,
Identical.
they were able to reproduce that checklist and say exactly that they can provide these things. But curiously, there was little to no information to support that. So whereas you had the Ford people providing a long history on the Ford brand, 4x4, showing you the interior, all the specs and details of that. All you got was that they were supplying Isuzu branded vehicles to tier whatever, very general, but on the checklist, they have everything in the checklist.
And we have the chairman of the board explaining that. So, Mr. Director, just pull that clip up for us. It's a short clip, so that we can actually hear it from the horse's mouth.
The specifications developed for the ambulance by Mr. Frederick's team numbered 41, meaning there were 41 points of intersection that any proposed bidder would have had to meet in order to satisfy all the specifications of Mr. Frederick's team. BMTT, is it? BMTT met all 41 criteria. So that we are fortified in our view that the ambulance the ambulance that we purchased was the ambulance that we sought if we go by specifications alone.
This is confusing.
How the development surrounding this ambulance gate continue to become more and more curious.
Yes.
And as information comes to light, we are seeing all the things that were put forward by the board and the TRHA. You're seeing a lot of gaps and holes in the information that came forward. So now you have some contradicting in terms of the information from the TRHA and the actual documents that are before us. So again, the question comes back. How is it that a company who has never supplied ambulances before is able to satisfy every single requirement?
41.
And even as they quoted for Isuzu ambulance, what is currently in the possession of the TRHA is force ambulances. So what happened between the criteria that they said that they would satisfy to the delivery now that we are experiencing? And even when you had companies who have supplied ambulances to other regional health authorities in Trinidad, where you have the regional health authorities indicating, yes, I can vouch for these persons because they have supplied, they're in working condition, they're able to serve, and they comply with the requirements of the TRHA, of the RHAs, those in Trinidad. You have those companies with lesser costs, greater experience, not
meeting 41.
Not meeting the requirements and not successful in the bid for these ambulance services.
And what is interesting, as was mentioned, is that it was a request for a general quote and it gave some general
specifications,
but not the 41 pointers.
So then how did
the question is, how did BMTT
know that there were 41? To
satisfy 41 to perfection.
Yeah.
Not 13.
And you heard it from the chairman herself. Yeah. This is not Kelvon's word. This is not councillor's word. The chairman reported to all of Tobago that in a process where the request for quotation was quite general, that the bidder that brought their bid last, was able to satisfy every 41 of the specifications that they wanted satisfied. So, and the question, how they knew, how they were so accurate. And this is a company, how they were so accurate. Yeah. A company that has never in their life, that is not part of their portfolio, that is not part of their service. How did this company come in to be so expert to meet those criteria to perfection.
And even with the information provided, there are still questions about how BMT actually
enter the
process because then there's, well, again, and based on my research, the question is whether they were OPR registered. And when you're OPR registered, the thing persons ought to understand about OPR in this new arrangement, you have to OPR register. A company have to be registered under the specific service. So if you're looking for ambulance, a company must for the OPR to come up under the OPR list of companies. You will have to have registered as a provider of ambulances, and you of course would have been required to show some evidence proof that you have the capacity. When you look at the profile of BMT, nowhere, absolutely nowhere in their profile speaks to the provision of ambulances. And therefore the question is, if they have no experience, no business in providing ambulances, how did we get there? How did we get there? How did the TRHA, who's looking for ambulances under an emergency arrangement, find a company that does not even provide ambulances?
Minority Leader, I want us to look at one of the letters that we have here this evening from our provider.
Correct.
Who
under the
arrangement, who would have sent to the TRHA. And let us see what is said in terms of the referencing, in terms of the experience. Mr. Director, could you pull that particular document up for us, please?
And it's important because what was reported to the country at that media press conference is that they gave the impression that it was only 2 providers who actually responded, and their pricing was too high. We were never told that in this bid, when they went out back during the emergency process, even before they got to BMT, they got options that were more reliable, more experienced, and were actually cheaper. I want to beg on you and
so what's the data?
This is the 17th of February. And they received, if they were really under emergency rights from this supplier who has experience supplying ambulances. We have built, look, they're saying it, we have built at least 4 units for the NCRHA.
Right.
And at the movement, we are building a unit for even the government of St. Lucia. Yet your Tobago
people
regional,
listen to this.
And they quoted for those 2 ambulances.
And they provided 8 for their own.
1,400, which is $700,000 per unit, which is half the price we are paying for those force ambulances. We are paying $1.44 million. So in other words, what you would have received for 2, this TRHA bypassed that arrangement and went and paid for 1.
And look at the details, Minority Leader.
We are getting known vehicles.
Nissan.
We know about Nissan. And these vehicles are operating with no issues in Trinidad, in St. Lucia.
Yeah.
And yet, your TRHA, for some reason, rejected that. Rejected that out of hand.
Yeah.
And went ahead and brought to us
force.
By force.
But Minority Leader, what is even more interesting is that although BMT would have quoted for Isuzu ambulances at a price of 1.4 million, we did not receive those. We received force ambulances, which is of a lesser value. But yet still we did not see the cost savings
reflected
from the force.
And the other thing what force did, and which should have raised red flag, and the question is why they continue to pay. They said they would have, I think it was like the maximum in terms of supply, they would have supplied in, they would have gotten those ambulances within 3 months or so. right? So they gave the
Probably meant 3
impression that
years.
they can deliver the ambulances in a quick turnaround time. And you have the chairman, this is the chairman, is on record as saying they were unable to deliver in that period, in that stipulated time frame, because of COVID. So we in 2020, what she said, I want to quote her because she liked to sue. So I want to quote her right. She said what?
That shipping
issues, and she said as a result of
coming out of COVID,
and that was 2023.
23.
Well, the shipping issues
That ship-
extended to
It's paddling.
2020.
We are paddling. No, this is
So I
a
want
travesty.
very much a travesty.
We have another
And so,
quote here.
but the point is, 2023, and the first set of ambulances did not arrive until quite October 2024.
But ML, it is even worse. Mr. Director,
So a
pull up the
whole year
next one,
after.
please.
And we ordered 8 more.
And we continue to order. Well,
And
we
we haven't
basically
received-
buy. But the interesting part about those 8. So again, you see 2. So
ML,
we are
what-
asked to
what-
quote for 2
What's
ambulances.
the date on this one?
This one is
Even
January.
before.
And what is important for Tobagonians to understand about this one, those Ford ambulances that are going now for over a decade, that we continue, that saved the day, that was able to rescue the brand new force and rescue our Tobagonians who were entrapped in that force vehicle because it broke down and couldn't go up the hill. Those same people is where we bought those Ford ambulances from. Of course, ideally, I may have just wanted an upgraded brand of that because, but that brand, they no longer make that model. So this model is widely used and recommended, this Ford T250. And we were getting, that price is quoted in US, so 147,000 US per unit, which is about 900 or something. So
Less than
Less
1.4
than a
million.
million.
all 500,000 less than
A
what
known
they pay.
brand.
And we all know
known,
Ford. In fact,
reputable.
Ford is a reputable brand, top quality, top notch.
Yep.
And when you go to the States, you see those ambulances
All
up
over.
and down, all over the place.
We pay 1.4 for unknown brand.
And you had this reputable company who provided you with reputable vehicles before that you can get the parts from. You have the relationship, you have the supply chain established, and you also bypass them. Cheaper, more experience, more reliable, more known, reputable. Yet you bypass them and you went and found a supplier who has zero experience. The brand that he said he was going to supply, he did not supply.
Have it.
What you ended up with is something else. And there will have to be consideration as if to whether the evaluators were misled. Because if you're telling me you're going to supply, if I ask you that I want a phone, and you tell me, well, I'm going to give you an iPhone for 1.4, and I get excited because I'm still thinking when you do an iPhone for 1.4, that is, and I know I could get the iPhone. Then you come, when I'm looking for an iPhone, what is delivered is a blue.
Listen.
Because that is the part we have not yet. The point is, if you look up, and I challenge any Tobagonian to just go on and look for that force online, and you, the average Tobagonian, you can purchase that ambulance for about 250,000 TT.
Correct. Not even less.
So it means, therefore, we are being charged a high price for something that cheap.
Yeah, but even when you look at the ambulances,
when you look at it, but when you look, and I saw the chairman trying taking us for fools, taking Tobagonians for fools, telling us that the manual make is superior to automatic.
Yeah, but
I
that
know
looks
when
like
you're buying vehicles, because if you go to buy two 4x4 pickup, you pay more for
the
an
newer
automatic
Automatic.
transmission
Yes.
than you would pay for a manual.
Yes.
But yet she's trying to advance the manual as being more
And you would
sophisticated
also pay more for a newer model
and
than
an older model. Then the other thing is these ambulances, we had to point it out, came without even air condition. Where in
A
this
fan.
modern day you are purchasing a vehicle without AC, especially for a tropical country.
Madness.
But what is even more concerning is the response or non-response of the secretary,
Yes,
and the response
To date.
of the chief secretary.
planes, and now the chief secretary finally, because we asked him this question and he cannot try to now wash his hands like Pontius Pilate and say I hand over this file. We asked him and he's on record as saying he sees no issue
And
Correct.
no reason for an investigation. So then why now are you saying that you are sending the files to the OPR?
And the thing about it is you can't remove yourself from the process.
Correct.
Because the secretary has general direction and control. What is the point of having a secretary? What is the point of having an executive council in place if they're not able to manage? We are not saying get involved in the process, but you ought to oversee
Oversight. You must have
taxpayers'
oversight.
money.
And the point is, that's why they had ample opportunities to treat with this issue because the red flags were raised from the time those 4 ambulances arrived. And if they were interested in really protecting the public's interest, then they would have gotten involved from that point on.
And that is why I speak to when issues are raised, you treat with the merit of the issue without just dismissing that an issue. Because if they had treated with the merit of the issue, I don't think the situation would have escalated to the point that it has now become.
So this matter is now attracting the attention of the ACIB. I understand some interviews have already happened. And, you know, I can just tell Tobagonians, sit back, relax, and watch it unfold and let the chips fall where they may. But as we have told you, notwithstanding the legal threats, this is a matter to which we shall not, will not rest, because the facts of the matter is quite troubling. You had a situation at procurement starting off where they went out, they asked for quotations for 2. A contract was awarded for 4, valued at about $5.35 million or so. And then all of a sudden, somebody got bright and they added 8 without any new process.
And without receiving
receiving the first 4.
At
least wait, make sure those, because the other thing is you've purchased now cutting bag. They also paid for training in India where the vehicles are being manufactured, yet no one is, as far as I understand, no one went to India for that training. So where is that money that was paid? Are we going to be reimbursed? Those are the questions. Normally, if you're buying a vehicle, you test drive the vehicle. And I know the process is usually when we are purchasing vehicles, especially fleet, bulk, more than one, you would have some representatives go to see and actually make sure what they say, what we are purchasing is what we're getting and can work.
Well, they trust them.
But yet, we accepted these 4, paid 50% down. After a year, did not receive, but continue to pay for more.
Ordered more
and paid for more. I like that you brought that up because that's the final clip I asked the director to pull up so that we can see the payment schedule so that persons will know that we're not making this up. Mr. Director, just pull up that for us before you start to cue us to close this evening.
What we have actually paid, the years that we have paid it, based on the invoices provided by BMT to the Tobago Regional Health Authority. If you would note, that the total sum paid to BMT thus far on receipt of 4 of the units, on delivery of 4 of the units, we saw 3 at the commissioning phase, and the 4th is in Trinidad and will soon be with us in Tobago, is $10,387,500. And on the initial purchase, for all 12 ambulances, the outstanding sum is $6,217,500. The facts.
So there you have it.
There you have it. And what is concerning, if you look at the date of one of those payments, being the 6th of April,
2025,
you would note and accept that the TRHA was without a board. And based on my information, the CEO is only authorized to approve payments up to $1 million. Therefore, the question we all ought to ask, and which requires an investigation, is who authorized that payment of $2,085,000 on the 6th of April 2025. This requires an immediate investigation. And if the CEO would have been found to act improperly or in breach, that CEO ought to be fired.
Wow. This is, I don't know if to say grievous, I don't know if to say shocking, but I'm certain it's illegal. There is some sort of malpractice involved here. And we are seeing it coming from the woods. These are the statements of the CEO and the board chairman.
So that is the thing. The chairman would have reported to Tobagonians, and the CEO would have reported to Tobagonians, and therefore, even after reporting to Tobagonians, what we are seeing are the clear gaps in their report. And of course, there are a number of unanswered questions to which this investigation, it is my hope, will be able to fill. And thereafter, I am simply saying, let the chips fall where they may, but it cannot be that we started this process to get ambulances for the people of Tobago at reasonable prices, and we are now paying a record $1.44 million for an ambulance, when based on the quotations, we could have gotten ambulances for much less and for greater cost savings to the people of Tobago. Because, and on top of that, what we receive, we are seeing they are giving trouble. They are not fit for purpose. You're getting reports of some incident almost on a daily basis. So imagine you're already in an emergency situation, and you are not even sure what is taking you is reliable. And that is my greatest fear. I mean, on top of all the procurement issues.
And what we need to remind the public as well is that we are in a situation where the Tobago House of Assembly is crying for limited resources. And yet we seem to be spending this type of money indiscriminately. We also have this exorbitant expenditure. We have not been able to have use of the ambulances in full, and we still continue to rent ambulances. So not only are we paying for ambulances that we don't have use of, but we continue to rent. So we continue to rack up that cost. And again, it's the opportunity cost. What could we have done with the money that we are utilizing to rent the ambulances and to purchase the ambulances that we don't have?
And while this is happening, just right within the health sector, you have issues of insufficient equipment,
pharmaceuticals,
just basic supplies. just maintenance issues.
Yeah.
I got calls about some gas line issue in the dietary services,
Yes.
and that persons were fed unsatisfactory meals for
Yes, a period of time,
time, and so many other issues plaguing the health sector. Yet you have this wasteful spending happening, and that is the ambulances, but one of many. I raised the incinerator, which is a whole heap, a bacchanal again. Then on top of that, you have the TRHA now purchasing lands that should really be in the tourism sector.
Well,
that is a whole different
deal with
scandal
that.
which we will deal with,
Yeah.
will prosecute, and will unearth.
yeah. What is the true intention?
It makes you wonder, a board that is performing in such scandalous manner, you continue to reward them with more appointments. A board that you have this kind of questionable procurement of ambulances that you, the chief secretary yourself, now have seen the need to send it to the OPR to find out, or for them to confirm the breaches. And you have taken absolutely no action. Is this what we are saying to our young people, that for issues where you underperform, that you reward them with even more greater authority? And as we close, I just want to share with the public information coming to me today is that the matter involving the Office of the Chief Secretary and the 13 workers who were engaged with the Community Partnership Unit, that matter has come to a final judgment. And it is my understanding that that final judgment was made to the 13 persons insofar as the court found that for fair payment, they should, the court, and I'll read paragraph 3 of the judgment. The court found it fair and just to award the workers for the outstanding vacation leave and payment for the remainder of the period of their respective contracts. The court also found it just to order the payment of prorated gratuity for the period served under their respective contracts existing at the time their employment was terminated. And the court said that the court is satisfied, therefore, that it can proceed to give its final order in these disputes, since a notice of appeal does not constitute an automatic stay of execution. They have also ordered them at paragraph 13 for the compensation to be awarded to each worker as set out at paragraph 12 is to be paid by the Tobago House of Assembly on or before September 30th, 2025, and it is estimated that in total this payment amounts to an award of over $3.7 million. So this is the action of when governments make decisions that are unfair, that are vindictive, that are wicked, that are uncaring, and not in accordance with the law and proper industrial relations practices. And this is one of couple to come. So this is the actions. This is what is the actions that comes after a government is being spiteful and wicked. And I really want to commend those workers for standing up. Because oftentimes a lot of people take their abuse in silence and walk away. And I really want to thank them for standing up, because what they have done is they have saved a lot of jobs that perhaps would have been terminated in this and actioned. So today is a good day for workers, for contract workers in the THA. It says that there's a place where you can get justice when you feel aggrieved.
Yes, folks, we are out of time. We've gotten many cues, and so we do look forward to seeing you guys next week, Tuesday. Quite a lot to continue unveiling and exposing. So we just ask you to stay tuned. I'm Marlon David, your host, saying have a wonderful night, stay prayed up, and God bless.
The views and opinions expressed on the following program are those of the commentators, guests, and host. They do not explicitly or necessarily reflect nor represent the policy or the views held by Tobago Updates or this network. Tobago Updates or this network cannot be held accountable for all or any views expressed during this program.